Hey, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm Dr. Ariel Hammond, and this is the Enrichment Entrepreneur, a podcast for current and aspiring entrepreneurs who are in the business of helping kids thrive. We're talking after school programs, summer camps, tutoring, enrichment, the people and places that show up for kids outside the classroom. I'm still building right alongside you, and that's exactly why we're here, to learn, grow, and figure this out together.
Let's go!
Hello, and welcome back to the Enrichment Entrepreneur. I am Ariel, and today we are going to cover the difficult parts about running a kids enrichment business. There's so many, and I have a lot that are like fresh at the top of my mind because I just got off the phone with another entrepreneur in the space. And yeah, a lot of these things are not just experienced by us in isolation, but it can feel like that, especially when we haven't had a lot of opportunities to speak to peers in space. So today we are gathering around, and you're going to learn that you're not alone in some of these struggles. You can Google how to start a business. You can find 1,000 podcasts about general entrepreneurship, mindset, hustle, motivation, but none of those are going to tell you what it's like to run this kind of business with these particular customers, with these particular users, with the particular partners that we had. We're going to go over those things specific to our context. And some hard truths. So one hard truth about leading this type of business is that there's no tool built for us. We're constantly having to take together other platforms that are built for others. We're using registration platforms that are for gyms or for daycares. We're using CRM tools, that's customer relationship management platforms that are not built for our types of business. We are using scheduling platforms that are terrible. And most of us, I haven't talked to anyone who doesn't use a Google spreadsheet for scheduling just because it's so clunky to try to use another platform's process. Marketing, we have to conduct our marketing in such a different way than other types of businesses. We can't just depend on social media posts and email campaigns. We are embedded in our communities, and we reach our customers in very unique ways that aren't reflected in the marketing tools that are available to us right now. Even parent communications, all that lives in different places that we piecemeal together, and we all make the best of it. So there really aren't those tools to make our lives easier with technology. And we're blessed to have the age of GPT and Claude and other LLM models that can help us. So an example of the area that this lack of system platform built specifically for us really hits home is marketing materials. So every session, every site, every season, we need flyers, not just digital flyers, although we need those as well. We need physical flyers. Even if we're just making visual flyers, you still need those specifically made for each different program. We need different promotional materials for the different types of programs, different kinds of year, social media graphics made for the different partnerships. All of those things can take a lot of time. So before this year, we were manually creating graphics in Canva for each of those processes. So every flyer was customized. Although we had like a template, you still had to go in and manually type out the name of the partnership, the name of the program, the dates, the times, the prices, all of that for each flyer. And that can end up taking a lot of time. And then we had the color version. That's the digital version. We also had to update the black and white version that was optimized for print, all those different things. So just with flyers, every term, we would spend between 5 and 10 hours, closer to 10 and sometimes 15 hours just making flyers. In 2026, we actually discovered that Claude can now integrate with Canva, and we can generate our own graphics and our own marketing copy, registration flyer. So leveraging technology can greatly assist with the pull of marketing on Adyen time. So something actionable you can do about this week is you can do a time audit. So you can write down everything you did in the last 7 days, that was repetitive or something that was template based, and that is your automation hit list. So even one task automated saves you hours per month compounded over the year. You can look at different AI tools. I mentioned Claude. We're loving using that tool. You use GPT. If you use Gemini, whatever you use, trying to use that to make your copy and to make your graphics. And the barrier to entry for these tools is lower than you think, and the payoff is immediate. And if we even apply our context, 10 hours a term over 3 to 4 terms, that's 40 hours over the year. So that's a lot of valuable time saved that could be put into other higher leverage things like making sure our program quality is remaining high, supporting our instructors, planning to scale, all of those things that are really, really important. Another hard truth, number 2, is that for-profit organizations are largely frozen out of grant funding. And this one is like so tough for me. In the first couple of years of the business, I would network connect with people and they would think of an opportunity. Oh, this grant is coming up. This funding opportunities coming up. You definitely qualify for it. You have the perfect type of business for it. And I would apply. And a lot of the times, those things were true. The grant would be for educational programs, teaching STEM in the communities that I teach in. I mean, just by the looks of it, yes. And then I would look, if I didn't see 501(c) only, so not for profit, nonprofit only, if I didn't see that designation, I would reach out and then the clarification would come that no, he had to have that tax clarification. I got a bit savvy to that later, and I would begin those conversations with, is this open to for-profit entities? And about half the time or more, the point person may not know if it wasn't explicitly on the website. And I say, I don't see why not. I don't know. But I mean, reviewing that kind of work, it seems like you sure. And it would come down to no. Even speaking to members on philanthropic boards, programs do would say, yeah, submit a proposal and what programs can you do with funding. And I would come up with these programs that we could offer at no cost to the community, are fully funded by the philanthropic dollars. Then after the application was submitted, then they come back to me. Actually, no, even though I made sure to clarify that we were eligible for that and it still came back as a no. And eventually I just had to learn my lesson that if I try it 40 times and get the same result, then it's just time to leave that alone. There are opportunities in the area of being grant funded. There are opportunities to have a dual entity where you have a for-profit and a nonprofit, and that is how you can be eligible for funding by philanthropic and government organizations. You have to look into that. There are some complexities there. There are applications there. That is a choice for those who want to look into that. For me, that felt like an action that would split my attention even more and then take me down the lane of trying to run a nonprofit at the same time of trying to scale my existing business. So that's not an option for me. I just had to learn that by choosing this business model, philanthropic money is not as available to me. Maybe a general like business grant might be applicable, but if it's a program for delivering educational programs to kids in the community, that is almost guaranteed to be limited in who can apply, who's eligible to receive those funds. And it's so tough because I would see who gets these contracts, who gets the grants, who gets the funding. And a lot of times I could run it cheaper and have more of an impact. I could serve more students and still, just because of the type of organization, the tax designation, it just wasn't an option for us. And that was unfortunate, but that's a trade-off in choosing this type of business model. So for those who are still contemplating and planning what type of entity they want to have, because they know they want to be in youth enrichment, I would just add that perspectives, that outside funding is going to be limited. So the real funding levers as a for-profit, it's not that they're not there, but the funding levers look different. They could look like contracts with school districts, although many school districts still prefer to have contracts with nonprofits. Many have contracts with for-profit organizations. The vast majority of schools and school districts that have contracts with after-school care providers, such as Champions, Care, those types of programs, those are all for profit. So they tend to have contracts with for profits, especially at scale and especially for child care providers specifically. And youth enrichment providers, we don't necessarily fall into child care providers in daycare. So that's a whole different regulatory certification process to go through to be one of those entities. But that just goes to say that being for profit does not automatically cut us out from having contacts with space in school districts. There are also opportunities for corporate sponsorships. This is an area where, again, I have not had success there yet, but I've seen it happen. I've observed other, especially in STEM, other more product-based businesses have partnerships with OpenAI or other big tech companies. So there are opportunities there. I don't know what they look like from the inside, but from the outside, they seem to be a possibility. Sliding scale and scholarship models are still open to us. So some of us, I think that to offer access to children who may come from more challenging economic background, that we have to be a nonprofit, and that's not true. In my business, we offer scholarships. You cover up to 100% of program fees and costs for children to be able to participate who would not have otherwise been able to, because we plan for that in our financial model, and being an integral part of our community in an equitable way, that means a lot to us. So we plan for that in mind, and we give our own scholarships and aid for participation. You can also work with the parent-teacher organizations or the schools to offset the cost of the programs if you would like to explore that. I just talked to another provider earlier, and he works with schools and said that every single school that he works in, he will offer at least one scholarship spot per term in each of his programs, and he'll cover half of the program. And he works with the PTO to cover the other half so that he can offer at least one full scholarship spot to a student per program. So there are a lot of creative ways to do that. So something actionable that you can do in this area is, my advice, what I would tell myself years ago, would be to stop applying for grants that are written for nonprofits. If the grant is not a grant for businesses and specifically saying that it's open for profit businesses, if that is not explicitly stated in the application on the website, leave it alone. This is me speaking to former Ariel. Stop the wishful thinking. It's not always time to persist. And with this going down that lane, it's not always time to persist with that. It's not fruitful, and it's not worth the energy that can be spent elsewhere in higher leverage. That time is better spent building strong relationships and exploring other avenues. Hard truth number 3. We are competing against free and against perception here. So this one, it was in my head rent free, especially with each new school year. We have to look at what rates are for rentals, for the cost of doing business, what is a cost of living increase that we have to then apply to compensation for our staff and instructors. So the cost of doing business goes up every year. Meanwhile, we are still competing with free educational enrichment services, and the gap between us and free gets wider every year. So parents compare us to the free after-school program at their school or offered by their district or at their community youth organization. And even when the program that you may be offering is completely different in the scope, the quality, the topic, and the outcome, it still lives in that mental category of after-school program. Oh, those are free. Free has this psychological halo. It doesn't have to be better, it just has to be free. And that's the thing that most operators don't realize. Some of what feels like price sensitivity is actually a value communication problem. And I've experienced this myself thinking the customer that I serve is very price sensitive. Parents of young children, very, very price sensitive for this particular service. But it's actually a value communication issue. So if a parent can't quickly answer, what is my kid going to be able to do that they can't do now? Your marketing has not done its job. Your website copy, your flyer copy, however they learned of your program is not effectively communicating the value to them. They should be able to answer that question. What is my kid going to be able to do that they can't do right now? So look at your flyer that's about to go out to the school for spring term, summer camps, fall. Is that clearly answered? And if not, how can you change it? And this is where you can attach that flyer to GBT, Claude, wherever you use, and ask, how can my promotional material, how can my website copy more effectively answer that question? And the other layer is that price sensitive customers, that's real, that's a thing, especially in the communities that we serve. And speaking for the communities that I serve, families, they're making real trade-offs on a daily basis. That has to be respected. I know that because I'm that customer. My kids are in enrichment. I'm making those real trade-offs every single day. So I get it and I respect it because I live it. But we can't let that be the default reason that we underprice our programs and that we underpay ourselves. So what actually works is leading with outcomes versus leading with the features of our program. So the features might be, these are the materials that we'll use. Here are the examples of some activities we'll do. That's cool. That's what they're doing. What do they walk away with? What are they learning? So an example of this would be, instead of, I'm in my organization saying, we teach robotics classes. Kids in our program, this would be a different version, leading with outcomes. Kids in our program build their first working robot in 6 weeks, and they walk out with a skill that they're proud of and prepares them to be ready for the future. That's an outcome. That could even be further at beach, but that's just a rough example to show the difference. Testimonials from parents who maybe was skeptical about the price and chose to convert into a paying customer, those are the best salespeople, the best spokespeople for the programs. A tip that has worked for me is early bird pricing. It creates urgency without permanent discounting. You don't want to permanently discount our services and permanently underpay ourselves and undervalue the value of what we're offering. So by offering early bird pricing, we're not lowering the value of the programs. Instead, we are rewarding early commitment. And we want to do that because the earlier the families in our programs can commit, the more stability we have for planning our program schedule and for teaching. Early this week, I talked to another enrichment entrepreneur, and they spoke about the difficulty that comes with the last minute schedule shuffle. That's what I call it, the schedule shuffle. That's a nice way to put it, where we have to commit to the schools early, and we have to hope that it works out. And we can be at the same school for years, and still there's a surprise that, wait, all of a sudden this term, enrollment is way down. Whoa, what's happening here? But you've already committed. Now you're 2 weeks out, and that's too late to add someone else, add another partnership in its place. So we have to then try our hardest to make that program work. And worst case scenario, we don't hit our minimums, or we are way below our minimums, and we have to cancel the program. And then there's a hole in that schedule and money is lost. There's a real opportunity cost there that converts to a financial cost. So yeah, that's a difficulty with this type of business that can be offset by strategic use of early bird pricing. We can also offer payment plans. That is something I found about 33% of our customers use a parent payment plan. It removes the barrier of that lump sum payment and the sticker shock that may come with that, but it doesn't change what we're charging. It doesn't change the price, but it's just a bit more flexible on how the price lands financially for the family. So we want to be flexible and support our customers in being able to make their purchases. And there are several registration platforms that offer payment plan options that do not further burden the family financially by charging interest and things like that. I think the majority of the registration platforms offer that without interest. So that's fantastic. And we just want to make sure that to the extent possible, we choose those options for families because, yeah, you want to support them to being able to participate. And something actionable you can do here is write down what your value statement is. That answers these questions. What does a kid gain from your program that they can't get from a free option? Make it specific and use that language everywhere. Your flyers, your enrollment emails, your conversation in the community with school coordinators, your website copy. Consistency of this message builds trust over time. This is especially important if you are in an area that really has a lot of competition with free. The area that I'm in has, I think, like the highest competition with free in the Portland metro area that I'm in. In any of the mid to large size cities in the West Coast, there are many, many STEM educational nonprofits. So we have to be very clear in the differentiator between us and free options. And the differentiator for us is quality. That's one of our differentiators, but that's the one that would lead well. The river of our programs is also a very close sample. So all these programs can be fun. Here you get top quality instruction and outcomes, top quality curriculum, and you get river and you get access to opportunities and outcomes, learning outcomes that they're not going to have at basically options. And in our marketing materials, we highlight exactly what those are. All right, hard truth number 4 is finding and keeping good instructors is the hardest operational problem that you will have. I've said it in previous episodes. I will continue to say it because it is the pain point universally in our industry. Instructors are our product. Our curriculum is not our product. Our brand is not our product. It's our instructors. We are service-based businesses. So when we have product-based businesses, the physical or digital product, those are the products. In the service-based business, we still are selling a product. A product is the instructor working with the child. That's what it is. So great curriculum delivered by mediocre instructors produces a mediocre experience. A great instructor can make a mediocre curriculum or a very simple program feel extraordinary. And the data it's pretty brutal in this area. So we know that turnover in youth serving organizations runs as high as 40 to 60% per year. And one Boston middle school program, fully 1/3 of kids said they considered quitting the program when a staff member they were close to left. So now we're talking refund requests. We're talking kids not coming back to a program because their beloved instructor, staff member is no longer there. So turnover is more than the HR issue, logistical nightmare. It's also a customer retention issue that needs to be addressed. So why do instructors leave? They feel underprepared. They report feeling thrown into a situation, a setting with a group of children and a curriculum that they have not adequately been prepared to teach confidently and effectively. Their role is inherently part-time, so there are logistical limitations to how much income can be earned from this role that they have with the enrichment organization. The pay ceiling is the factor. You can only charge what the market will bear, which limits what you can pay. Upward mobility is very limited in youth enrichment businesses, and they feel invisible. Often, the staff in youth enrichment businesses, they aren't given structure, high quality, frequent feedback that helps them grow and that supports their sustained growth in their role. There's no connection to leadership. Physically, they're often in location by themselves with the students, with the kids, and support management is not physically on site. In some brick and mortar organizations, that is a possibility, but even in those situations, a lot of the time, their lead, their manager is not often available. So, what actually matters for retention? Onboarding matters enormously. If someone's first week feels chaotic and unsupported, you've already started losing them. You just may not know it yet. Also, management matters, and the effectiveness of management is crucial. One study of after school care found that after implementing context specific retention solutions focused on manager mindset, programs saw a 22% decrease in turnover and an 8% increase in stable roles within 1 year. So that means that how managers treat staff and instructors matters as much as pay. So maybe you're wondering why you can offer your staff pretty robust hours, maybe even on a regular basis. You also pay at the top of the market for your business, for your type of business, for the type of role that your staff works, and you're still having higher than normal turnover. The issue may lie in ineffective management. So that might be something to look into. Just as instructors are undertrained often in our industry, so is leadership. So had you or your leadership staff had formal and informal training and mentorship on how to be effective in supporting their team, your team? If not, that's something to very thoughtfully and intentionally carve out time and resources for. And another thing that works is creating a pathway, even if it's starting with a small pathway, like a lead instructor, a title, or any other administrative needs that you had as we grow. Try to look internally because you may find that your existing staff, there may be people who are looking for additional opportunities and had additional skills that they would like to apply to your business to help you reach your goals and for them to reach their goals for additional paid opportunities. Make sure that you have regular check-ins with all of your staff. And if you are larger and that's not feasible and sustainable for you, every staff member should have at least a monthly check-in with their leader, with their manager. And so let's make sure that that at a very base level is systematized and scheduled, so that any issues that come up, an outlet scheduled and in the structure of our organization. And so something actionable you can do this week in the spirit of public acknowledgement, because we know a shout out in a group chat, a message to a parent about a specific instructor, those things that cost us nothing. However, they do build loyalty. People will stay longer in their paid roles when they feel seen and valued, not just seen in a negative way when they make a mistake. How quick are we to remedy that and address that with our people? Okay, so think about that. If it's the same day, immediately, all right, now let me ask you on the other end of that. If someone does something amazing and a kid is so excited about what they just learned, a new skill they just developed, you just got a glowing review from a satisfied parent, how quickly do you then address that with the instructor or the staff member? And if it's not just as quick, then that may be a culture need to work on and a habit to build within the organization. That's something that we can all do that doesn't require some longer term planning, like some of these things you just mentioned will require. So that's something we should do in the immediate. So just think about that. Try to build it into your rhythm after you've done it, and it's going to feel good for you to give that feedback and know you made somebody's day. All right, now how can you build it into your rhythm in a systematized way? How can your leadership team, how can they build it in their, and then we just build from that success. It might start off as a monthly thing or a weekly quick touch point, but that's how culture changes. Those small actions done regularly and often. Well, there's my tip there. And our last hard truth is that the isolation we face in this industry is it's distinctly challenging, and that has real financial and operational consequences for our woes. So we covered the stat in our introduction episode. 46% of entrepreneurs report feeling isolated. In this industry, that is compounded. We do not have a formal association. We don't have the groups, the message boards. We don't have those things as an industry yet until now. And we're going to be getting those things, but there's no trade association for us and for operators at our scale. No industry conference built for the person running the 5-site enrichment business or the summer camp in rural Georgia. There's nothing like that for us. And so this is our step in building that. So what is the result of that lack of formal and informal camaraderie and community is that we're making pricing decisions, hiring decisions, growth decisions, crisis decisions, largely in the dark by ourselves, just like feeling our way through it, hoping for the best. Maybe we get advice from mentors or paid expert help. That still doesn't compare to someone in your industry who has done this over 20 years and has faced that exact problem several times and found the solution that worked for them, and they can share that thing with you. That is worth its weight in gold. So when I was figuring out pricing for a new program that I was offering, I had no benchmark, no one to call and ask. There's $180 for a 6-week session. Is that reasonable in this market? I was just guessing, and that guessing costs money. I tried to research. I would use AI to work with me on it. I would kind of search other providers in the area and just try to land in that ballpark that they were offering different programs. So still that wasn't the best way to do it, but it was the best that I had while working in isolation. Also, like an operational application. When an instructor no-showed 45 minutes before a program started, I had no playbook, no process on how to deal with this. I had to figure that out moment by moment as it was happening alone. Had I been part of a community, I could have instantly messaged someone. What did he do in this case? Okay, well, I just dealt with it now. What do I do so that there's not this crisis moment in the future? How can I be prepared for this? And I had to largely learn all of that on my own when really, if there's community, I wouldn't have had you. Isolation, it costs all of us. It costs us when we second guess decisions that we no longer should, when we reinvent wheels that other operators have already created, when we have no early warning system, or when things are going to happen down the pipeline for maybe some of our partners or for our community. No one to say, hey, I heard the school district is restructuring the after school program, that they're going to offer all their programs internally. Just a heads up there, we don't have that. So someone may have that information in our area, in our group, but we're not connected. So that doesn't get shared. And even connecting to the previous hard truth around the need for public praise, it being free, and it being a very powerful retention mechanism, we need that too. So what helps? What helps here is when other enrichment operators are in your network and you can quickly send them a text or an email for more than just comparing numbers. just to simply think out loud, to know that you're not the only one that is experiencing something or has experienced something, a particular challenge. Even one person who really gets it, that changes the game in how you experience your journey. I think that LinkedIn is really underutilized in our industry. There are operators building fantastic youth enrichment businesses, and they share insights there. That's partially while I started reaching out and building a network through LinkedIn. Many of us are not on LinkedIn, and we're doing great work and we're doing it offline. So if you're not online, if you're not on LinkedIn, be part of that. Be part of the change, the cultural change for youth enrichment operators to join LinkedIn as a general professional networking site and then network with your specific cues. And what also helps is this podcast. The reason I built it is because I was an isolated enrichment operator. I don't want you to be that. So something actionable you can do this week is we can send a message through LinkedIn to another youth enrichment leader in your space. They may be, and you teach pickleball and they teach pickleball, but just across the country. You connect us in, swap stories, share notes, or just say, hey, I'm doing something similar down here. Would love to be in community. That's it. And you can follow one another's journeys and be as close in communication as you want to do. You can also on LinkedIn add me. I'd love to follow your journey as well. And you can send me a message. You can tell me where you are, what you're building, and what are the challenges that you're currently facing. I might have had other conversations with operators in this space, and I can connect that specific pain point to that person who also experienced that challenge and found their solution that they may be willing to share with you. So yeah, let me know where the challenge is and I can help make those connections as well. Just know that I do read every message that I get. And if you know another enrichment operator who is out here doing this work alone, you can share this episode with them. And that is how we build. And so I just went over a bunch of hard truths for those of us in this space. It's a hard knock life for us. But none of these other reasons to quit or to get down on ourselves. These are just things that knowing what we know. And if you experience any of the things that I just mentioned, now you know you're not alone in that. That's a feature of this type of business. It's not a bug. There's nothing wrong with you. That's par for the course. And there are things that we can do to move the needle individually and as a group. And these are things that we can prepare for. And these are things that we can address. And we can share what has worked with us with the community. And so that others can try those things out for themselves. As an industry, we can scale what works. And we all win when we do that. The ones thriving in this industry aren't the ones who've avoided these problems. They're the ones who have anticipated the problems, they built the systems, they found their community, and they've kept going, they persevered, and that's what we're doing here together. So, yeah, let's do it. And that's a wrap for today's episode. In our next solo episode, we'll discuss how to get organized. Remember, in our first hard truth, we talked about the fact that there is no platforms built specifically for our context. So we are using lots of different spreadsheets and tools to run our businesses. And with that, it is very easy to become disorganized. I say this from personal experience. The more I have on my plate, the more I become very disorganized unless I am very intentional with the tools and the processes that I use. So I'm going to share what has worked for me, what has not worked for me, and then share some other tools that others in this space has found to be really wonderful and effective for them as well. And maybe some of those might work for you. All right, see you next time. Bye. And that's a wrap. Know someone who needs to hear this episode? Share it because
Sharing is caring.
if this episode earned it, give us all the stars in a review on whatever platform you're listening on because it helps other enrichment entrepreneurs find this show. Got a question or a story worth telling? head to enrichmententrepreneur.com. You can submit your questions, apply to be a guest, and access resources to help you launch and grow your business. Again, that's enrichmententrepreneur.com.
Until next time, keep learning, keep building.